Okay, 2.6 is quadratic formula. This is definitely Algebra 1 review. Okay, there's not really a whole lot new about quadratic formula. I mean, we just look at it a little more in depth. But you would have done quadratic formula in Algebra 1, right? Okay. Quadratic formula. Right here. Here's your quadratic formula that you need to be familiar with. You want me to be honest and transparent with you? Yes, I'll probably provide it for you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, long term, guys, if you continue and do anything math related or any other math classes, you need to know that. Okay. If you don't know it, you need to know it. So, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay. Now, and of course, my ABCs come from our standard form of ax squared plus bx plus c. And note, what does my equation have to equal to make this happen?
0.
My equation has to equal 0. Okay? So, we're going to practice. I should have suggested you will want to have your calculators out today. There are definitely some places that you will want calculators by your side. But we're going to practice through these. We're going to look at steps. You have to know how to order the steps. Okay, it is important. So, and keep in mind, guys, quadratic formula is what we use when factoring fails, and you can't factor, right? Quadratic formula, okay? You could complete the square, but you're probably going to prefer just to go quadratic formula. So, in example A, 3x squared minus 4x minus 9 equals 0. What are my ABCs? What's A? 3 because it's in front of x squared. What's B? Negative 4 because it's in front of the x term. And what's C? Negative 9. It's a constant at the end. Notice my equation does already equal 0, doesn't it?
Yep.
Okay. After you get your ABCs, I would say the first step, write this out. Don't try and shortcut it and do half the math in your head as you go, because that is where you are going to make mistakes.
Little mistakes.
Little mistakes, big mistakes, I don't know. You're going to make the mistakes. So, I'm solving for x. So I'm going to say x equals negative b. What are we going to use for negative b?
4.
Yeah.
Would be positive.
Yeah. B is negative 4. So the opposite of negative 4 is going to be positive 4. Plus or minus, big old square root, b squared. What is b?
Negative 4.
Negative 4 squared. I'll talk about that in a moment. Minus 4 times a, which is
3.
3, times c, which is negative 9. All over 2a, which is 2 times 3. Again, I can't stress enough to write those steps out. Okay? Don't try and think, oh, I'll come back and get the 2 times 3 and put it on the bottom later. We forget to go back and get it later. So, okay? 4 stays out front. Plus or minus? Guys, what do we know about negative 4 squared?
It's a positive.
It is a positive, always, yes?
Yep.
And 4 squared is going to be?
16.
16. It is important, guys. Realize, if you type in negative 4 squared on your calculator, and your calculator says negative, it's because you didn't use parentheses. But this first value here is always going to be a positive. Some of you are going to make mistakes because of that, but it's always going to be a positive. Now, on this next part, it's minus 4 times 3 times negative 9. I tend to look at signs here. I have a minus, and I'm going to multiply by a negative. What sign is that going to end up being? That's going to end up being positive, yes? I'm going to end up having to add, because I'm a minus, I'm going to multiply by a negative. And then 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 9 is 108. All over 2 times 3 is 6. Okay. Clean up under the radical if you haven't already done that. Some of you may have done it in the previous step. What is 16 plus 108? Okay. 4 plus or minus the square root of 124 all over 6. Now, Savas is going to tell you you're not done at this point. Okay? At least my guess is they're going to say this is equivalent to the final answer, but not simplified. Why is it not simplified? Yeah, is there a perfect square in there maybe? Now, here's one thing, in all honesty. Double check. I mean, I know it's not, but it doesn't hurt, especially with the bigger numbers. Is 124 a perfect square?
No.
In other words, if you take the square root of 124, do you get a decimal?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
do.
Now, do you guys all know how to do square roots on your calculators?
Yeah.
Maybe a silly question, but make sure you do.
Mine have a button right there.
Oops. Yeah, square root of 124, 11 point something. So, I can't take the square root of it, although that's always something you should check, because some of the bigger numbers, you'll be surprised, like, oh, that is a perfect square. But, 124. I'm going to go over here for a little side note. What do we know about 124? What can it divide? What does it look like it can divide by that is a perfect square? Does it divide by 4 maybe?
Yeah.
Looks like it should divide by 4, and 4 is good because 4 is a perfect square, right? What is 124 divided by 4?
31.
Oh, is that a good thing? Yeah, that's a good thing. Now, 4 is a perfect square, so I'll be able to take the square root of that. Are there any perfect squares in 31?
No.
No, 31 is what I would call prime, because it can only divide by 1 in itself. So when we simplify this, the square root of 4 is 2, and then square root of 31 stays square root of 31.
7
Does that sound a little familiar? As I said, we have a whole chapter later that we simplify radicals. They don't ask you to do a ton here, but they do ask us to do a little bit of the basics. So that's what I'm trying to review. So when I keep writing here, this is 4 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 31, all divided by 6. And if you put this answer in, again, they're going to tell you
Wrong.
it's equivalent, but not simplified. I have 3 terms there. What do you notice about all 3 terms?
They're all positive. Even.
They're all even, which means they could all divide by 2. 4 can divide by 2. The 2 outside here can divide by 2. And 6 can divide by 2, yes? So we're going to reduce these all by a factor of 2. Okay? What did I hit? Oh my God. So when we reduce these all by a factor of 2, 4 divided by 2 is 2. Plus or minus 2 square root of 31. 2 will cancel, and it's just square root of 31. All over 6 divided by 2 is 3. And that should be your final answer. Now, with that in mind, I'll be honest, I didn't try to enter an answer like that in Savas. I probably should have. I would assume they'll let you leave it like that. Okay? Other options, maybe you'd have to split it and have the positive answer and then the negative answer. I don't know. The other thing is, could we split this into 2 fractions if we need to? We could. Because we could say 2 over 3 plus or minus square root of 31 over 3. I don't think they'll make you do this. I think they'll be okay with that there. Okay? Now, let me ask, how many solutions do we have here? 2, yes? And there's going to be 2 most of the time today. because we have 2 plus the square root divided by 3. That's one of them. And we have 2 minus the square root divided by 3. That's another one. Now, there's no imaginaries here, correct? So if they're not imaginary answers, they are real answers. But what I need to point out to you, and this is prep work for later on, is that because there is a square root right here, because there's a square root right there, if you have a square root of a number, do you remember that is something called irrational? Okay. Rational is something that can be expressed as a fraction. Irrational cannot be expressed as a fraction. If I put square root of 31 on my calculator, what do we get? 5 point something, I know that. 5.56776436, something like that. Okay. So I want you guys to realize this is a situation where we have 2 real solutions, but they are irrational solutions. And again, I'm sharing this information now because it will help us understand something later. Okay, so we have 2 real irrational solutions. And it's irrational because there is a square root. Okay, so I guess I mentioned rational is something that can be expressed as a fraction. Irrational are numbers like pi. Big, long, messy decimals that go on forever and don't repeat. Square root of 31 is a big, long, messy decimal. That's why it's irrational. Okay. Questions on A? Okay. Let's try B. What do you notice about B? What? Well, there is a C value, but what do we have to do before we give our ABCs?
You have to plus, it's like, put it on the other side.
Yeah. In order to make this happen, we need our equation to equal 0, don't we? Mm-hmm. We currently have the A and B on the left. The C's on the wrong side. So how do I move the minus 27? We're going to add that 27 over. So when I add that 27 over, I have x squared minus 9x plus 27 equals 0. Okay? Now identify your ABC. And some of you may say, I don't need to write down my ABCs. That's your call. But what is A? 1 is what's in front of x squared. What is B? The negative 9 in front of x. And what is C? Notice it is positive 27 because we had to move that 27 over. Okay. Are you filling into your quadratic formula? In practice, make sure you know how to do this. X equals negative B. So negative of negative 9 is going to be positive 9. Plus or minus the square root, B squared, negative 9 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 27, all over 2 times A. Okay. Are you practicing the math? I know some of you are, and you need to be. 9 plus or minus, what's going on under the square root? What is negative 9 squared?
81.
81. And that is a positive 81. Minus 4 times 1 times 27. 108. all over 2. Now, some of you may have already done the 81 minus 108 on that step. That's fine. Perfectly fine with that. So 9 plus or minus, what is 18 minus 108?
Negative 27.
Negative 27? I knew that. All divided by 2. Okay, so I have 9 plus or minus square root of negative 27, all divided by 2. Can I put this answer in?
Oh, need to put a
Oh, are I still a part of our life here? Yeah. We've learned those imaginary values. Now, there's something more than just an I that we need to consider here. So I'm going to bring my negative 27 off to the side so I can work with it. There is a negative 1, and negative 1 is going to be an I. Are there any perfect squares in 27? I knew what you meant. Okay, 27, your brain should say 9 times 3, shouldn't it? And the importance of 9 times 3 is that 9 is a perfect square. The square root of 9 is going to be a 3. What about this other 3? Stays under the radical, yes? Okay. So 3i square root of 3. Okay. With that in mind, let's write our answer out. 9 plus or minus, instead of square root of negative 27, I'm going to say 3i square root of 3 all over 2. Is there anything else I can do to this answer? Okay. 9, 3, and 2. Do they have something they all divide by? No, they don't. Okay. So I would just leave it like this. Okay. I can't go any farther, so we're going to stop there. Now, how many solutions do I have here? Do we still have 2? There's a plus or minus. That should be your clue. We have 2. Because there's going to be 9 plus that 3i radical 3, divide by 2. And there's going to be 9 minus that radical, divide by 2. So we still have 2 solutions. Okay. Now, are these real solutions?
They're imaginary solutions.
They're imaginary, right? So they are non-real solutions. So again, trying to prep you for later on when we use the discriminant and talk about that. These are non-real solutions because there is an I. And that also means when we use those imaginary numbers, do you remember we call them complex numbers? Complex numbers are that form a plus bi. So I'm going to mention here that there are 2, this time I'm going to say non-real or complex solutions. Okay, and again, this time it's because of the I. When we talk complex, complex numbers are in the form a plus bi. Okay, so just kind of as a review there, when we talk complex, they're numbers that are in the form a plus bi. Okay. Okay, get what you need there. And then I would say go ahead and start trying C. And I know I have several examples here, but all the answers end differently, so I want to talk about different ways to express final answers, which is why we're still practicing. Did you start C? Are you starting C? Maybe I should leave you alone for a moment. I don't know. Okay. If you've started C, notice it already equals 0, doesn't it? So you can just go straight into your ABCs. So x equals negative b. So negative 11 is positive 11 plus or minus the square root b squared negative 11 squared minus 4 times a is 2 times c is 12 all over 2a, so 2 times 2. (11) plus or minus negative 11 squared. I'm squaring it, so it's going to be positive. 11 squared is 121. There's just a minus there. 4 times 2 times 12. My brain, 4 times 12 is 48, and 48 times 2 is 96. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. So I'm at 11 plus or minus 121 minus 96. Is that 25?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. So 11 plus or minus the square root of 25 all over 4. Can I put this answer in Savas? Definitely not. Okay, I don't even want to say, I'm definitely counting off your answer here. Because why? Yeah, square root of 25. That is a perfect square, yes? So, square root of 25 is 5. So, 11 plus or minus 5 divided by 4. Can I put that in my answer key? Or in my answer? No. Now, I'm at a point where I have 11 plus or minus 5. Can I do 11 plus or minus 5? Yes. Okay, do the math there. So we're going to have, I'm going to have to do 11 plus 5 dividing by 4, and I'm going to have to do 11 minus 5 divided by 4. 11 plus 5 is 16. 16 divided by 4, I'm going to have an answer of 4. 11 minus 5 is 6. 6 divided by 4? I would reduce and say 3 halves. You'll have to read in homework. Will they allow a decimal? Which they usually put down in the direction, like below where you have to enter your answer. They usually say how they want you to enter your answer, right? I read it, but I don't remember what it said in terms of, I would say my answers are 4 and 3 halves. They might allow you to say 4, 1.5. So if you can go, go as far as you can. How many solutions do I have here? 2. Real or non-real? Definitely real, yes. Rational or irrational? Okay, and I know this is, remember, irrational? Big, long, messy decimals like square root of 31. Rational, things that can be expressed in fractions. Could these be expressed in fractions? Yes. So these are 2 real rational solutions. And I'll just squeeze it in here. So again, rational. Do I need to throw it on here somewhere? I don't know if I really want to put it right there. Rational means it can be a fraction. Okay, it can be expressed as a fraction. 3/2 is a fraction, yes. Can 4 be expressed as a fraction? Yes. So we have two real rational solutions there. Okay. What are your thoughts on D? I threw in one small trick here. X squared plus 9 equals negative 6x. My equation does not equal 0, does it? How do I make it equal 0?
Plus 6x. Put it in the middle.
Plus 6x. And the trick is, where does that plus 6x need to go? In the middle. Well, it doesn't have to, but that's where our ABCs are going to make the most sense, aren't they? So, x squared plus 6x plus 9 is what makes this the best form, isn't it? And so, if that is the case, A is 1, B is the positive 6, and C is 9. Okay? If you caught that, then this problem works out to be relatively nice, doesn't it? Actually, very nice. So, here we go. Negative B. Well, if B is 6, what's negative B? Negative 6 plus or minus the square root of B squared. So 6 squared minus 4 times A is 1 times C is 9 all over 2 times A, so 2 times 1. Negative 6 plus or minus, what is 6 squared? 36. 4 times 1 times 9? 36. All over 2. What is 36 minus 36? 0, yes? So now, we end up with negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 0, but what's the square root of 0? 0 all over 2. What happens here?
Both the solutions are negative 3.
Okay. Both my solutions are negative 3. In other words, negative 6 plus 0 is negative 6 divided by 2, so negative 3. Negative 6 minus 0 is also negative 6 divided by 2. So we really just end up with negative 6 divided by 2, which is negative 3. Now, how many solutions do you see? Just one, yes? And what it is, okay, one solution, real or non-real? Real, there's no imaginaries in it. And then when you get into the next part of homework, which as I said, I'm trying to prep us for the second half of the lesson, this is going to be a repeated solution. So technically a quadratic always has two solutions. Sometimes they're real, sometimes they're imaginary. In this case, this is a repeated solution. Okay, so because negative 3, even though it's the same value, technically occurs twice. And so this one, yes, there's just one. Yes, it's real, but it's called a repeated solution. Okay, so this is one real repeated solution. Just take the information in. It'll make more sense later. Okay. One last example to finish up today. And then we can pick up tomorrow. Let's talk about Dion. Dion throws a ball into the air. The height h of the ball in meters at time t seconds is modeled by the function h of t equals negative 5t squared plus t plus 4. When will the ball hit the ground? What's your thoughts saying there? What do we have to set up? If the question is when will the ball hit the ground? This is height, yes? What's the height of the ground? 0. So when will h be 0? So basically, you are setting your equation equal to 0. So negative 5t squared plus t plus 4 equals 0. Okay, so always read. If it says when will the ball be 36 feet in the sky, then make your equation equal to 36, right? Just you have to read the question. If you are interested in your ABCs, A is negative 5, B is 1, C is 4. So, now instead of saying x equals, I'm going to say t equals here. Not that it's a huge deal which way you do that, but I'm going to say t equals because I'm solving for t. Negative b. Negative 1 plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So it ends up being negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times negative 5 times 4 all over 2 times negative 5. Negative 1 plus or minus, what's going on under the radical there? 1 squared is 1. Minus 4 times minus 5 times a positive. A minus times a minus is going to be a plus. 4 times 5 is 20. Times 4 is 80. All over negative 10. I like the looks of my radical. Negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 81 all over negative 10. What do we know about the square root of 81? It's 10, or excuse me, 9. So negative 1 plus or minus 9 all over negative 10. Shall I stop here? No. Realize you've got to think about negative 1 plus 9 divided by negative 10 and negative 1 minus 9 divided by negative 10. Negative 1 plus 9 is 8 divided by negative 10 is negative 4/5. Negative 1 minus 9 is negative 10. Negative 10 divided by negative 10 is positive 1. So I just got answers of negative 4/5 and 1. What's the answer to my question? Yeah. When will the ball hit the ground? After 1 second? Why are we not using -4/5? Yeah, you can't, we're not talking negative time here. So the answer that matters is the 1. And so it's going to happen after 1 second. Okay? Okay. Tomorrow, we'll talk about using the discriminant. And it should be shorter. I don't know. I would like to think some work time tomorrow. Okay? This homework will be due then on Thursday? Yeah. I think right now it says Wednesday in Sabbath because I didn't really know what to expect. So I will change that to Thursday.